Welcome back, everybody, to the Secret Sauce Podcast. I'm Chad Treese here with my amazing host, as always, Lacey Moores. And we're super excited today because we're joined by a realtor extraordinaire, team leader, business coach. We've heard her speak multiple times. She's just amazing. Not in our market, so not to hopefully step on anybody's toes. We're in Kansas City, and Marjorie, without further ado, let's introduce Marjorie Adam. And you're East Coast.
Yes, no worries,
right?
everyone. I'm in Charlottesville, Virginia. Nobody else listening is from Charlottesville, Virginia right now, mostly.
Yeah, but you get it, and you coach realtors all over the country. You've got a
Yeah.
history in coaching for years and years and years, right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, we wanted to dive in on some stuff today. Like I said, Lacey and I have heard you speak multiple times now, and you always bring it. And yeah, we thought, what better way than to bring you on and learn a little bit about your secret sauce. A lot about what you've been talking about lately has been the whole NAR settlement, which is, relevant, but we can talk about that a little bit, but maybe not get too far in the weeds on it. Lacey, where do you think we should start? We've been talking about this. Where do you want to start?
Well, Marjorie, will you just give everybody a little rundown about, you've been a coach, like Chad said, forever, but tell us a little bit about that and what's really been your biggest, how long you've been in the business and kind of where your business changed the most.
Yeah, so I'm thank you so much. So I'm a realtor in Charlottesville, Virginia. I have a very small team, 3 people and me. I've been a realtor for 28 years. I got into real estate because mom was a realtor. And ironically, I thought I'll never be a realtor because mom was a realtor. And then I went into business with her. I now work with my brother. So very family-oriented family business. I think I've been through all the markets. I started 28 years ago, and I got my first mortgage. It was 8% for an FHA. And I was super stressed out for my $118,000 townhouse that doesn't exist anymore. And really have seen all the markets, right? I lived through very painfully the 2007 and on market. And certainly was really prepared for this shift, which I think, the settlements are probably one of the biggest shifts we've seen on our side of the business.
Yep.
Ever, maybe in terms of since buyer agency started in the 1990s. I think this is a massive opportunity. And I think too many people we were joking, Lacey, we were joking about reading the book, Who Moved My Cheese? Read it, but your cheese has been moved. Just so you know, your cheese started moving about a year ago if you're a realtor.
Yep.
Your cheese is fully gone now. So I think you need to adapt and just listen. Yeah, if you're still stuck, the time is gone. I think anyone who says they're not going to evolve, you better be reading the news. You watch The Attorney, who is the big Sitzer Burnett attorney. If you pay attention and if you're a realtor and you're not looking at Inman and all the news sources, you're missing out. And they are watching you. And Big Brother is here, right? DOJ and the attorneys, you think they made hundreds of millions and they're done? They're not. So
Yep.
They are literally watching. What do our forms look like? Are we implementing? Are you getting your buyer agency agreement signed? So, are you creating workaround websites? Are you just not going to shift compensation and how it's done? And so I think the people have spent a year thinking, oh, it'll never happen. Now it's happened. And we just need to roll with it. It is here. And it's going to be the future. And we have to, adapt to it and work through it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Right on. Go ahead, Lacey.
Well, so one of the things that you just spoke at our event, and one of the things that really resounded with me is you said that so many people are going to be running towards listings, and you said you're going to run the other way. I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, I think so. Listen, when something shifts, it's very interesting because I think that industry conferences are super important and we should go to them. And I went to the Inman conference in New York in February. I just got back from a conference that was less industry specific, but I think we go to the industry conferences that are really important, but we don't innovate or evolve in one. We just sort of group think, which is good, but it puts us in the herd. And I think right now, if you listen to the news and what everyone's saying, it's the herd mentality right now is, oh boy, how am I going to get paid for working with buyers? Which I think is ironic because you're going to get paid pretty much like you always did. But how's that going to work? So you know what? We're all going to focus on listings. And don't get me wrong, in real estate, listers last. You want listings. Doesn't mean I will be just throwing my listings away. But I want everyone to think about this. If everyone in the industry, if all the realtors that make it all say I've got to focus on listings. One, that means a whole lot of people going after one smaller segment of the market until the market changes, which also means much more competition, which will result in prices, right? If everyone needs a listing,
yeah.
the commissions will go down. And so to me, it's like, okay, if the whole herd says, I'm going to ignore these buyers, I am going to go anti-herd and I'm going to go hard on buyer specialization and taking better care and offering more service to buyers, because why would I want to chase after the smallest piece of pie?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I mean, I think on that note, buyers are, what we've all been hearing is that to work with buyers, you've got to have a super defined value proposition, right? You've got to be unique. You've got to be able to speak to your value. And I think that's where people are struggling. A lot of realtors are struggling right now, as they've been hammered that message home. And maybe they're going to work with sellers because you don't necessarily need to have as defined of a value proposition or be as unique. What do you think about that?
I disagree. Here's the thing again. So we're, already the market has changed. We have fewer sales. So they're saying there will be about 4 million nationally sales this year. They're projecting that again next year. So if everyone's waiting for next year for many more sales, I think you're going to keep waiting. So if we look at that, the piece of the pie is smaller. And also think about, you don't think the sellers are also saying, hey, these lawsuits are all about, by the way, how I was paying you and the other realtor a lot of money. And now I don't have to. And by the way, I don't have to pay you that. And what are you doing for your money? And the biggest issue is, as I travel across the country and teach and speak and learn from realtors, because I'm an eternal student, I have a lot to learn. So let's be clear. I've just paid a lot of attention to this. I hear, oh, I get 3%. I'm just going to get 3%. Dream on, pumpkin. Because if your entire market is now working on a segment of listings and everyone else says, I'll do it for less. And if discount models grow more and more, if you don't evolve your services up, you have no option but to discount. If you don't have more services, you discount. If you don't differentiate, you discount. Now, let's be clear. If your model becomes too discount, have at it. That is your model and there's an audience for it. It's just not my model. So I have to say, to work with me, you're going to get this elevated level of service for my sellers as well as my buyers, right? So for both segments, they hire us to solve a problem and save them time, right? Their problem is they have to buy or sell a house. The problem also is they have full-time jobs and kids and lives and stress and take care of parents. And, there's all these other things. And they want the details done and they want a great seamless experience and they want services that are going to make their lives easier. That's our job. Right. So to me, if you think I'll just go, like if the herd says, I'm just going to I'll go work with listings because it's going to be easier. No, it's not, because there are companies that'll do it for $500. Yeah. Right. And there always have, right. I can just put a sign in the yard. That's the thing, right? That cracks me up.
On MLS. Yep.
Yeah. Just put it on MLS. Right. So it's like, we can't just say, I do this. And the problem too is, if you take a room, and this is not disrespectful, so I'm not above anyone, let's be clear, but I do this a lot. If you go into a room with a large pool of realtors and you say, what's your differentiator? What do you specialize in? Everyone says negotiation, marketing, pricing, right? Like communication, which is comical because let's face it, some of the communication not so good. But if everyone specializes in negotiation, no one does. If everyone specializes in listings, no one does. So what's your niche? What do you offer above and over? Like, you can't, I take pictures. Great. I'm sorry. It's just like you guys saying, we'll call you back. Awesome. We'll close on time. That's your job, right? Like, that's not a differentiator. So now is the time that we get to either discount or elevate, right? It's both ways are options.
Yeah, totally. And there will be a race to the bottom of people that are trying to do it for a lot less because they can't figure out how to differentiate, how to elevate. And so there will definitely be that, which will just mean that you got to elevate even more, because you got to make sure that you create the separation between the low cost providers and people that are still trying to make a living doing this and not slashing their costs, right?
Well, again, I mean, it's okay. Like, listen, I'm a strong believer. If someone calls me and says, hey, I'm going to for sale by owner my house because I don't feel that I need a realtor, nor do I see the value in one. Cool. Right? Like, you're right. And then someone else says, I'm going to hire a realtor and I'm only going to pay them one chicken, whatever, right? Like, I'm going to pay this discount price because I don't feel the value is there. Okay, you're right. And then my client will say, okay, because of the services and the 28 years of experience and growing up in the market and knowing the knowledge and your house prep and the providers that you give us and the cleaning of the house that you do and the pre-listing inspection and the over and above, whether it be the documents in the house or the systems that we provide to approve pricing, anything that we do that's got value will want me as their realtor. If it has no value to them, they should go to the discount realtor, right? And that's cool. So I think I'm not trying to convince everyone they're my client. I think the mistake is not everyone is. I am not everyone's cup of tea.
Right.
And I just proved this painfully on a $2 million listing today that someone said, I have 5 prices. Hurry up and get in this house. I need yours. Nope.
Yeah, we
I'm
feel
not
that. Yeah,
right?
we get that. And Lacey and I would definitely agree that like everybody's not our client, right? Like if somebody is just, hey, here's 5 estimates and I'm just looking at which one's going to be the cheapest and they're not going to listen to anything else, then I'll be like, hey, here's another name you should call, somebody working out of their basement on the internet, and that's probably who you should talk to.
Someone's right. Like, I think we get mad. I didn't get mad. I mean, I just said, hey, you have 4 right prices. And in theory, market analysis, probably not, but market analysis and plans from 4, I would guess referred pretty reputable realtors. That's the only thing I can assume. My 5th one is not going to help unless you can tell me that the 4 you have did not offer you. So there's something missing. Was their marketing plan not good? Was their pricing system not good? Did they not have the construction people in that because the house needs work? Was there nothing there that was provided you the clarity to move forward with 4 people that my 5th estimate is going to be what moves the needle? Because let's talk about that. And guess what the response was? Cool, thanks, bye. Right? No, it was, I want 5 prices. I'll pick either the number I want, the person I can boss around, the cheapest. I'm none of those 3, right? So to me, we can decide our time is valuable, or the time I have to spend this week is on my 3 sellers that I'm literally having their houses painted and rotten wood replaced and rebuilding their steps and giving them the value and all my contractors and picking out their flooring for them. Yes, we do all that. Like I pick out the floor. I go and make sure the fireplace is correct. I go and make sure my contractors show up. That's our job, right? I have time for that because that's my client. So I think as we evolve, we can't be a specialist in everything, right? And so to me, that's the biggest clarity, I think. And maybe why I'm in such a good place. I'm in a great place. Now, let's be clear.
It is.
Making less money? Yes. Have I worked 3 times as hard this year? Yes, I have. But am I much clearer and have a lot of things I'm excited that we're doing, systems that we're growing, services that we're offering to our clients for like highest level experience? Yes, because that's the route, that's my road, like that's my lane I'm taking, right? And I think if everyone is like on the, you go to Texas and I'm in Virginia, we're not very big, the 8-lane highway. If you're on all 8 lanes of a highway and these are all your clients, you're in big trouble, right? Like what's your lane on your highway that is yours? And again, God love you. If I'm going to do it for $1,000, do it. If I'm going to do it for X%, do it. If I'm going to be the most expensive in your town, do it, but provide ultimate value.
Yeah. It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes on this topic, but it's that price is only an issue in the absence of value, right? So if you've got an absence of value, price is all that matters.
That's all you have to offer, right?
Yeah.
That's all you have to offer. But we also know too, Chad, I mean, on our end, the race to the bottom doesn't end well, right? And we've been up against people racing to the bottom for the last few years, and most of those companies don't even exist anymore.
Right.
Because so they will, and it will be a process, but they will get themselves out because there's only like, you still have to make income, so the racing to the bottom and taking on more work and not like it doesn't end well. So it's just a process, that we have to go through. But I do think that this is going to bring out the best of the best, for sure. And I do think that people will really see what that value looks like, because to be honest, have we had to have a whole lot of value on the real estate side over the last couple years when it was so busy? Like you just had to be able to put a sign in the yard and open a door. And not always, I don't mean that so rudely, but not always, but now is that time. And it's going to be exciting to see the people who do step up and shine. And I love seeing your enthusiasm for what we've been talking about a lot, Chad, is that growth mindset, right? Is where we see where so many people see gloom and doom, and when the people who find the opportunity, it's inspiring. It's
But
very
that's
cool.
the time, right? I mean, if you look at this, like if you're not doubling down on, I mean, I'm going to more conferences, not less. I'm subscribing to Inman and Housing Wire and what listening to so many podcasts. I've read, can't tell you. I'm a speed reader to be fair, but and probably in the last 4 months, I've read 25 books, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just absorbing as much information to implement what I can and looking and saying, okay, when do businesses grow? Like when do things change? When there's a massive disruption, and we have a massive disruption right now, which gives us an opportunity to prove our value, or we can't, and then we have a problem. So I think that if people were looking at this, and I don't care what your industry is right now, but we're obviously talking to lenders and realtors. If you think, okay, how do I decommoditize my profession? Like we can't be much more commoditized than realtors and lenders as a group.
Yep.
And now it's time, especially realtor end, the trashing and thrashing, and the greatest irony ever, and why nobody talks about this is so the attorneys that were doing the suing that are saying we're watching you because we're gonna sue everybody, who made 40% as a fixed fee of the of the class action suit. So literally go on their website and it says we charge 40% basically, which is the most fixed fee ever, but they are really all over those realtors charging 6%. I just can't get over the fact that no one seems to understand, to me, this great irony. And they're going, hey, we made a lot of money. Don't you worry, we're watching out for you to make more money. And I'm thinking, okay, all right. So,
well, especially because they justified the 40% fee because that if they didn't win, they wouldn't get paid, that they could do a whole lot of work and maybe not get paid. Does that sound familiar to either of our industries?
Yeah, exactly. Like, again, there are times,
Welcome.
like you guys know, there are times like, I mean, I might list a house and 3 days later it sells. But by the way, it's also sort of like I've been in business 28 years and everyone's like, oh, you have this great, I've learned for 28 years and I'm learning harder now. But you also understand when I put the sign in the yard, which again is all we do, right? We put sign, I drive around all day. I'm exhausted.
Lacey said it, not me.
Right.
I didn't say it.
No, but if you think about it, the sign in the yard could have been 1 year, and often for us is 6 months of the first meeting. And we got a stage, we got to paint. Like right now, we're doing literally all the flooring, all the landscaping, rotten siding. The HVAC is sideways. I've got yellow jackets in the yard. I've had to redo all of the landscaping. So we've had to hire all these people. It's been months, literally picking out the light fixtures at Lowe's that we are going to pick up to deliver to the contractor on Monday. This is a house, by the way, that's $350,000. Now, I'm not saying this isn't just a $2 million house. We do this for all houses. So when you see it go on in the market, and yes, the sign goes in the yard, people are like, well, they put a sign in the yard. And I've had hundreds of conversations, met many contractors, gone through some that didn't show up, everything someone struggles with to put the sign in the yard.
Yep.
Right. So that's my value. Right now, that house will sell for that versus 70,000 less because of the work we did to prep the house. So again, what's my value? If my value to you, the consumer, is the sign in the yard, that's a problem, right? But let's take some ownership, because if the realtors don't sit back and say, hey, let's be honest, if we all use the recommended buyer agency agreement that have been around for years, which our area required, my office, you don't get paid without one. So we've used one for years. If we had taken that as seriously as a listing, right? Where in the listing agreement, if we hadn't just walked in and look, this isn't everyone, but if anyone says this isn't the case in some areas, it's false. If I didn't just walk into Lacey, your house, and say, oh, 6%, I'm sorry, you have to pay that. My brokerage requires it. The market, you have no choice. I can't negotiate it. If it was a fixed sign here, and by the way, buyers, oh, I'm free. And then I show you houses and then they went to closing and went, you made what? That's on us. That's on us for lack of clarity and lack of treating the buyer side like we did the seller side. I'm sorry. No one I've ever seen didn't do at least a listing presentation where they got a listing agreement signed that laid out the price and God hope the process. But for buyers, it was a big Wild West, right? Like,
exactly.
I'm gonna pick you up here or whatever. That's my buyer, not really my buyer. Like, no explanation. So,
and don't worry, I'm free to you. That was
yeah. So that's the problem, right? So I think if we own it and move forward from it instead of try to work around it, because now people are like, oh, I'm going to put it on this website and I'm going to put 3% on a keychain. And I'm like, my God, just have consultations, explain to the seller, this is my fee, what I earn. Here's the structure of what I'm going to recommend. Here's what I expect you're going to be asked for. Let's run net sheets, assuming, let's talk about what you're willing to do based on an acceptable offer. And buyers, hey, for all of these services, this is what I charge. By the way, we're going to get into this. I know Lacey's going to ask how we're going to structure it, that we work super well with our lender partners as realtors, which is more important than ever, right? We're going to get into that too. But that's our job, right? If those consultations and the processes and explaining the contracts and, the services that we provide haven't been part of our job, well, shame on us.
Yep.
Absolutely. So if you're coaching a realtor right now, before we move on, if you're coaching a realtor right now, what would you say is for them to define their unique value proposition? Like, how would you set them down that path? Because I think that's where a lot of agents are struggling. They know they need to create their value proposition. They've been told that over and over again, but they can't figure it out. They keep posting where I see like memes on Facebook and stuff that's like, here's 100 things that I do to deserve my commission. And I'm like, no, that's your job description. Literally, that's what every realtor does. That's
Right.
the job description of a realtor. There's a reason why Patrick Mahomes gets paid different than the lowest rated quarterback in the NFL. They have the same job description, right? But they get paid differently based off of the value that they bring. So how do you coach a realtor right now on how to define their unique value?
So I think, so I'll answer it a couple different ways, but I will say if I can offer one bit of coaching too, the biggest mistake I think as a whole that we do as realtors and lenders and anyone else is we don't pay attention to a question someone's asking. Ironically, you're asking a question. It sounds like I'm not paying attention. I promise I will. But if I can just deviate for 2 seconds.
Totally.
The biggest question, of course, if you're going to go into an appointment, if you sit with a buyer or you sit with a seller, or you go to the grocery store, right? As a realtor, people are like, oh, I guess you're never going to get paid again, or whatever they say, or oh, it sucks to be you. And I'm like, it's great to be me. But in people, let's say Lacey asked me, oh, the lawsuits, oh, what's that all about? Right. The irony is I do this discussion with realtors across the country, and immediately it's sort of like, all right, here we go. Well, I am worth this, and this is what I get paid, and I'm not a discount broker. And I'm like, you're not listening to the question. So if I can like help the real estate world right now, when someone asks you about the lawsuits, smile and say, gosh, Lacey, that's a great question, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. What have you heard? Let's talk about your understanding on it, because then I can really help explain, fill in the gaps, and really kind of correct the wrongs I keep hearing. So
Let's
I
pause
love
right
it.
there,
Yeah,
because I just
I
want to
love
say
that.
that again. Yes, love that. And I think it's the biggest coaching piece. You spoke about that on stage, and I loved it because we instantly go into what our response needs to be. And we need to listen to what they know and what they hear first, because it changes, does it not, the whole direction of what you're going to say based on what they have already know or what they've already heard.
But again, we get to naturally, like, look, you're in theory, in your head, someone's attacking your income.
Yep.
And I get that, but quite frankly, that's not it. And usually it's wrong. And you get to diffuse it, and you get to be the consultant. You get to explain it. Like, to me, nothing is better if many times a day I can say, what have you heard? Oh, that's so interesting, because I keep hearing that. Can I just tell you really what's going on? Can I just briefly explain this to you and understand the benefits actually of this lawsuit for clarity? Like, if we can make this positive, and by the way, they didn't ask you what you get paid, they asked you about the lawsuits.
Yep.
Or they say, I heard that I don't have to pay a buyer's agent anymore. Well, let's talk about what you heard. Then they answer and say, well, you never did. Just to be clear, you still and always could put your own sign in the yard. You can offer $500, $1,000, whatever it is. Your business model and your ability to do it yourself hasn't changed. What's changed is the field in the MLS. There's no longer a compensation field. And
Yep.
what's changed is that buyers have to have a signed buyer agency agreement, right? So the fact that you don't have to pay, you didn't, right? And that the buyer's agent now is going to have to be really clear to the buyer what they're offering for their compensation. There is no longer cooperative conversation. And the problem too is, if you look nationally, the realtors are confused, because I can tell you, like EXP, by the way, I'm not an EXP agent, but shout out to them on a more national level. If you haven't paid attention, read about it. People lost their collective marbles because EXP said we're no longer offering cooperative compensation. By the way, the whole basis of the lawsuit. They're not saying that we're not going to compensate, that a seller isn't willing in their way in a contract to compensate a realtor. They're
Yeah.
saying that we no longer as brokerages can share commissions. That's the
Decouple.
lawsuit.
You're right.
And people, I hate EXP. EXP is not for realtors. It's like, no, you clearly misunderstood the whole basis of the suit. So I think if people really just sat down and understood it, and by the way, you have to know it better than your client. I can't sit with a client who knows more about it than me. Now, at this point, they won't, because I've studied this for ad nauseum for hundreds of hours, but you have to dispassionately, non-emotionally say, no, actually, this is what it means. And here's the benefit to you. Here's the benefit to you as the buyer. Here's the benefit to you as the seller. Here is what I recommend we do. The strategy I recommend is X, right? That's why they want us. So this whole, I'm not discount broker, they didn't ask you that, right? So
Right.
take a breath. What have you heard? Well, that's interesting. What do you mean by that? Really? And then go, okay, now I know how to answer this question. So that's, I'm sorry, that was off topic, but
No,
so
I love it because it's actually relevant for lenders too, to ask that question, because it's something we should ask all the time. People are like, oh, rates are going down, right? Or, whatever it is, it's, well, tell me what you've heard. I mean, it is relevant to both of our fields, to everything, to all sorts of topics, not just this settlement. So thanks for dropping that in there. When I saw you speak last, that's one of the big things I wrote down. Use the phrase, tell me what you've heard about, to answer most questions. So
let's talk about
thanks.
that. Where did you hear this, or what do you mean by that? So I make sure I answer the correct question. But finding our superpower is what you were asking earlier. Like, how do we differentiate? And honestly, that's really hard. It just is, because in a commoditized business, we all say the same thing. We all say, and we should be like, I'm a great negotiator. Gosh, I hope so. Right. I'm a great communicator. Okay. Marketer. I'm great at marketing. I'm great at social media, like all the things. I can get this done quickly. I'm going to make you the most money. That's all the basics, right? Those to me are not traits. I mean, they're traits, but they're not a differentiator. Those are the basics. So to me, the differentiator is, look, if I've done this for 28 years and I boil down, I think I'm really good at what I do. I think I can help. If you need to sell your house, I can help you between 100,000 and probably 2.5, 3 million, right? So then you think, well, that's not a real differentiator, but what am I really, really good at? So I'm really, really good at a first-time home buyer, because I have systems and time. I will spend a lot of time explaining the process and really making a bunch of complicated noise simple. Right. So you don't need to worry about all these things. And I'm not just going to send you a form to sign. We're going to sit down and we're going to go through your wants and needs and why this may not be the right time for you to buy. And this is what's important. And this is the process that we know works. Right. And we're going to handhold you every single step of the way, like through the whole thing. We're going to take care of everything for you. I'll make sure your movers are set. I'm going to make sure you have an amazing experience. You're going to have a surprise in your fridge when you're done. Like, we're going to take care of all of it. I know I'm good at this because I'm passionate about it. I think no one, you buy your first house, you just never forget it, right? Like, it's home ownership. It changes their lives forever. So I'm really good at that. I'm also really good at taking a home sale process. So if you've lived in your house for 30 years and you've got too much stuff and you don't know what to do, I know what to do. I am a wizard at that. So my specializations, right, are really taking you through the whole process of decluttering, staging, home improvement, getting the contractors in. This entire process, the pre-listing to get you the most money, is what I'm really good at, right? So let's talk about, what are they really good at? Now, I have realtors that are like, I don't like a first-time home buyer. Cool. So is it a downsizer? Is it a corporate move? Are you an expert in relocations? Are you an expert in what phase of the market? Military. Like, if my spouse was in the military, and I specialize in physicians, right? I know that physicians are my niche, because I really know you got no time. I've got this covered for you. Here's how we're going to do this for you remotely. So they've got to come up with, what are they really good at, right?
Or what do they want to become really good at? Because there's agents that have not sold, anything yet, and they're trying to figure out how to navigate this market and how to create their value proposition. So they've got to lean into something, right?
Well, then they've got to learn. So are you an expert in certain neighborhoods? Are you an expert? Because when you're brand new, honestly, you're not an expert. And then it takes you a long time. And then people, I think, are scared to define a niche because you alien other people. Not true. If I can help anyone who's really got a lot of work to do with their house, imagine how easy it is for me if I can walk in and your house is all ready. Sweet. Doesn't mean I can't help you. It's just that we can proceed more quickly. So I think that expert in everything is expert in nothing. So look, but here's like, if I'm 20 years old, I'm not going to say I'm an expert at seniors. Like I always laugh because when I started, I was 25 and everyone's like, you should get your senior real estate specialist. And I was like, well, I'm not so sure that it's going to be convincing based on, not that I can't be a specialist, but like my family, my dad was in the military, he just passed, but is the military buyer my specialization? I can certainly do it and have worked with tons because of NJIC and DIA here, but is it necessarily the thing I know better than anything else? No. So maybe some people are great. My brother's a licensed home inspector. So can we say we know homes and prepping homes and getting your home, that we're going to avoid expensive repairs because we take that time on the front end? Yeah, because I've got a specialist. So I want them to think about, are they specialists in marketing? Maybe they can get your home sold on social media better than anyone else. That's what I'm really good at. Then that's what they market. So the problem is everyone thinks, oh, I'm going to say I'm a great negotiator, like everyone else won't. So for me, it's like they've got to find, to me, it's like what gets them super excited. Like people say to find what you're really great at. What would you do every day if you didn't get paid? Like what would get you up every day if it wasn't just your bread and butter? But man, I know that better than anyone else. And for me, for months, it was the lawsuits. Like I've been talking about these lawsuits. I mean, I know I've read the whole NAR reports. I read every article. I've watched every podcast because it was that important, right? And that's probably why I got through the noise of it so much faster. Is I was like, well, this is not a big deal, right? Like I'm not worried about demonstrating my value. I'm not worried about explaining my opinion. And again, if a client says, I'm just not paying you or the other agent, that's awesome. They will find a realtor that will do that, right? So I think that's the biggest thing right now. What is my line in the sand? And also like, what are my non-negotiables? Like if you're rude to me or my team, not. Like you're not going to, and if you don't want to follow my process, if you're like, no, I'll use my own photographer, we're going to do our own. No, like that's cool. A realtor will gladly probably let you do that because that'll save them maybe some money. That's just not how we work. So I think if we're clear on my non-negotiables, right? Like no jerks and no one that doesn't want to pay me. I mean, those are kind of basic, right?
Yeah.
But I think if people really, and I've spent years and continue to, I'm getting coached on it now. Like I'm about to go through with Renee Rodriguez, an entire ethos exercise. It's 3 weeks. I feel like I know myself pretty well, but I'm like, again, I got to go to a higher level of what's different about our team and what I'm passionate about to help my niche of clients. So I think it's a constant refinement and it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Right? Like
I love that you're discovering that. Yeah.
Well, that's what you and I bonded over too, is just that like the idea of being a lifelong learner, like looking to elevate constantly. And I think that that's where a lot of people miss the boat, right? Is that like, if you just commit to that and you commit intentional time around that thing, you will come out on top with this. Like create your niche, pour into being curious and being creative around that and go for it. Like go play big with that. Right.
I mean, it's just more fun, right? Like, I mean, I think, look, I'm very like authentic to who I am, right? Like I might not be for some people. I talk kind of quick. I got a sleeve full of tattoos. I am very loving of all people. I am not going to accept people bullying anyone for any reason. Like I just know who I am. And I think, look, part of that, I'm now 52. You know, what was I that confident at 30? No, because when I was 30, I really wanted to, the funny thing is you evolve, right? At 30, and you know, in my 30s, I was in a coaching program and I just wanted to beat you. I just had to beat you. I needed to sell one more than you because that was my driver, and not because I didn't like you, but I was very competitive in that way. And now I'm like, how can I bring you with me? Like, I don't care if you're in the office next to me or across the country. How can I help bring you, like, how can I help you evolve into your best? Because I don't feel like if you do well, it's taking from me. And I think that's the biggest problem right now is it's like, oh, I've got to capture this and there's not enough. There's plenty, right? So like, how can I help you, you know, find your thing, which by the way is not my thing, right? Like I'm a sheller. People are like, what's that? I go shelling and look for shells with old ladies. And most people are like, you're crazy, but I love it. So, you know, my people are not your people. The way I do things is, and me elevating services and doing more and more, a lot of people here are like, oh, I don't want to do that. Awesome. Don't do it. Right. So I think if we think of it that way, like how can we bring our, you know, like to me, look as an industry, if we don't fix our names and we don't elevate realtor to another level and what we provide and the services we offer, we go by the wayside, right? And same with you guys. If we don't team up better, and I know Lacey wants to talk about that, if we don't really work together, not only for ourselves, but for the best of our clients, then our value diminishes. And, I truly believe that.
Yeah. Lift as you climb, right? That's a big thing that's in the back of my mind right now. Well, yeah. So you mentioned it already. Like that's one of those niches is that you have people, like you have a team, not just your real estate team, but you have like your go-to, we could say vendors, but like literally like your dream team. You've assembled, you've curated that. And so
My
like
tribe. It's my tribe,
Lacey,
right?
Yep.
right, your tribe, and that's part of your value proposition. And so not to sound self-serving, but I want to talk about that because from a lender standpoint, I do believe that we need to be part of that tribe, that we are a more important piece of that than ever.
Yeah. Yep.
So how do we, I guess, how do we bring that together? How do we make sure that realtors understand the value in having that curated dream team, their tribe, that is part of your value proposition? How did you come to that, and how do you deploy that?
So I think, look, people, they hear team and they're like, oh, she has a big team. Let's be clear. It's me and two people. I do not have a big team. That's just not how I roll, but I have a great tribe. And so I think that it's a mistake to not think, how do we work together? How do we help each other? But how does it benefit the client? Right. So let's talk about, it's hugely important for me to have my lender partner, because we absolutely are, like, the success of this for the client is massive. So we're talking about buyers now mostly, right? So to me, especially now. So here's what I'm going to see if I see, and this is so new, like we've been since August 5th. For everyone else, it's just been a couple days, right? Since these have taken effect. But so lenders, in terms of adding value, so I'm going to hop around a little bit, but I think it's important. Right now, I think for any lenders that are partners with their realtors, it's reaching out and finding out, like, what's your plan right now that we can work together even better? Because I think there's still going to be, I think a lot of realtors, the world, they're going to have to, or they're going to get in huge trouble. Because like I said, Big Brother's watching, are going to adapt to begrudgingly. And I think at the door, which is a mistake, they're going to get a buyer agency agreement signed. Hey, oh, I can't open this door. Here's my key, but sorry, it doesn't work till you sign this document. That's a massive disservice, right? So number one, the buyer consultation, huge. But how does that bring the lender in? Okay, let's talk about how things have changed. So let's just, in a selfish way. So if I'm a realtor and I'm going to be selfish about it, which by the way, selfish isn't always bad. And I need to make sure I'm going to be compensated, right? So I have to explain that. But furthermore, I can't assume anymore what that unknown seller in an unknown house that I haven't seen yet is going to offer or not offer, right? And if I'm doing the best job for my client, that means I'm reaching out. So right now there's two of you. I'm picking Lacey, and not because I'm not picking you, Chad, but Lacey's my
okay.
Okay. Lacey's my lender. And actually, Chad, you're the buyer. So I'm having my consult with Chad, and I'm explaining this is the services I offer. This is the fee that I charge. And my expectation is, and just so Chad knows, as the client, I will be writing that into the contract. By the way, realtors, only way you're going to get paid. I don't know what people are telling you, but I hate that people don't say that. Write it in the contract. Yes, you must. So anyway, that was an aside. But Chad, let's talk about how we're going to get this, how this compensation is going to happen. I'm going to be writing it into the contract, but we do need to prepare and talk about, what if that seller, let's say there's 12 offers, right? And that seller now who was offering compensation says, too bad, so sad. So here's what we need to do. Like, I know we've already set up a consult with Lacey. We've run some numbers, but I'm going to have Lacey run some scenarios for you, because we need to be prepared in the worst case scenario that seller is not going to compensate me at all. I can't have this be a, what are we going to do now? So Lacey's going to show you scenarios of what might need to happen with your down payment, your closing costs, adjusting pricing, what the scenarios might need to be in the very worst case. By the way, I don't think that's going to be common, but if we have multiple offers and we have to figure something out, I need you to be prepared for what those numbers look like so that we can be on the same page. So Lacey's going to run different scenarios based on the seller paying all the compensation part of it, maybe again, one chicken of it, two chickens. I don't want to be fixing commissions, but she's got to have you, Chad, prepared so that when that happens and I go show 123 Main Street and they're offering X and I charge Y, I just want to be, again, we don't fix
Yeah,
commission.
it's good.
That Chad goes, sweet, that's option B. but I got it. I know exactly what I need to do. All right, we're writing this offer. I'm competing, so I'm not going to ask for more. But by the way, guys, what no one talks about, what I charge is what I charge. I can write whatever I want into that agreement as long as it's the agreement Chad and I have. What is offered anymore is irrelevant. This is the next mistake. All the people that are like, the seller didn't offer anything, write it in anyway, unless you're in multiple offers. So it's a negotiation piece. But to me, the long and short of it is the lender realtor partner, we need to work together even more. As soon as Chad comes to work with me and I send him to Lacey to get pre-approved prior to our consult, I need to call Lacey and say, Lacey, Chad's going to be coming in. Just so you know, my compensation in my agreement is X. So when you're having a conversation with him, I need you to run those numbers because he has to be prepared. And here's the question, this fear right out here. What if Chad just can't? What if Chad can't pay that amount? Well, then we're going to have another conversation, right? Am I just going to ditch Chad? No, because he's my client, right? This is how things work. So the seller can pay this much. Maybe Chad can pay this much. I have to use remember our negotiation skills. I have to use my putting things together skills to make it happen. So listen, lenders listening right now, if you're not reaching out to your realtors, I always think it's funny because I know lenders are like, what do I say? And what value do I provide? Would think calling your realtor partners right now and saying, hey, Marjorie, I just want to make sure that we are set so that when we're having these conversations, we can assure that you're going to get paid.
Right.
Okay. That's important to me too. So that's the basics. So to me, if I laid it to the wild, wild west, which I don't understand how people don't do anyway, and they go over here to who knows who, 1-800-loans.xyz, again, I don't know. That conversation is not going to happen. Or does that person say, you don't need a realtor? Yeah. I don't know, because there's an unknown on the other end. So I need it. And it's, by the way, I'm not working with you, Lacey, because you say they need a realtor. I'm working with you because we're solving a problem. The potential problem is that buyer is liable for compensation to me. How do I fix the problem before it happens so it isn't a shock or a reaction? Because I assure you, lenders, what's going to happen is these conversations won't happen. And your Lacey's going to get a call that says, hey, Lacey, I need you to find me my 3%. That's horrible. That is not taking care of the client. Yep. So to me, that relationship, my trust in you, my faith in you has to be there anyway, because you have to do the process the way I need it done. My job is not to chase you down, right? I need to know they've made loan application. And if they haven't, you better reach out to me because I promise it'll happen quickly. I need to know the appraisal has been ordered. I need to know that it's come in and then there's not a major issue. I need to know the closing disclosure's gone out. Like, because we're not going to close on time. Like, so my partner and I are very clear. I need this, you need this. If I need to be bad cop, I will gladly be bad cop, right? In a very loving, kind way. But what do we do for each other? And what is anyone who has had a bad experience, whether you're a lender that had a bad realtor, and yes, we exist too, and you think, oh, good God, or vice versa, where we're thinking, man, I crushed it, took the best care of my client, but the lending side was a disaster, or vice versa. I don't care how great you thought you did. It was a bad experience for that client. Yep. That does not get referrals or a lifetime client. So, but to me, take it further. Like if you think like your inner team is that bullseye in a, like you're playing darts and you got the bullseye. So my 3 people inner team, that's the inner. And then my next circle is my tribe, because my homeowner's insurance provider has to kill it. My attorney has to kill it. My home inspector has to kill it. By the way, all the vendors that take care of me, that get into houses right away, they can't not show up. They can't do a bad job. So these people have to, I get them business. They have to make me look good, take care of me, really be great with my clients, which then makes my clients' lives easier, which is why they're working with me, right? Like, absolutely. There are still people that are like, here's a list of vendors. Good luck. I'm like, what are you doing?
How do you, Marjorie, when you have a client that comes to you and they've already been pre-approved with some lender that you don't know, trust is going to get you there, which puts your reputation, at stake? Like, I think that's the biggest piece with my agents sometimes is what is the best script, or how do you like to get through that, not to steer them to your person, but to make the client believe that the reason you're doing this is for their best interest?
Well, I think the thing is sometimes it's not just the name. So, right. So like, again, Chad's my client and Chad says, I'm working with XYZ, lender. And I'm like, ooh, okay. So Chad, I'm going to take 1 second. So I don't know this lender, so I'm just going to say right away that I have no idea that their processes are like mine. I do not know that this line that we're going to cross isn't going to have things. So here's the first thing I need. I need you to get me a breakdown of all your costs, because I can't tell you in good faith what's happening unless I know here's what the fees are, here's what they say. I actually then need to call them, because in our area, a full approval includes an underwritten appraisal, and most lenders don't do that, and then it messes us up and then it delays closing. So if you could get those numbers to me, I really need to review them, because right now I have to tell you, I have to make sure you're clear, because I don't know this person. I cannot tell you that I have any control over this part of the process or any ability to help you if and when it should go wrong. Are you okay sharing that with me and then letting me have a conversation with that lender? Because quite frankly, I do this every day and you don't know what you don't know. So I want to be able to say, that doesn't look right. Or, and again, if that's your trusted person, great, but I'm going to have to work really closely with them. So I need that information so we can move forward.
I like
And
that.
yeah, I'm not going to talk them out of him yet, because quite honestly, that's their brother or that's their uncle. There's a reason they work with them. And I'm going to say that to start. Now, often if they send it to me, I'm like, oh, like, no. Or they're like, oh, here's our pre-approval letter. I'm like, that's not a pre-approval letter. And hey, you're going to have to get me this letter. We don't do that. I'm like, that doesn't work here. And then I say, look, I need you to talk. Depending on if I hear a name and I'm like, oh no, I'll say, hey, and we're going to have another consult. I know you did one, and you can tell them what the credit score is, in case they're always scared, by the way, of the credit pool. It's like, well,
Yep.
Let's talk, because I have serious concerns. Or now if I've had a bad experience, I just say, no, you can do this, but I'm just writing down right now that this is going to be an absolute disaster. And this is going to be a nightmare that you're going to regret. Like, so it just depends on what stage it is. But I think that's our job. Like, if they recommend a closing attorney that I know is awful, I'm going to say no. Now I can't tell you who not to use, but let me just tell you what's going to happen. They're not going to respond. We will not close on time. They will not disperse. You will not get keys. 28 years, right? So I think it's my job. If Chad says I'm going to use them, cool. But then when it happens, I'm like, I don't mean I told you so, but I can't be held responsible. I can't make them do their job. I can do mine.
Yep.
Right. Well, I think my assumption, and not assumption, but understanding, is talking to a lot of agents, is that they just, if they hear, oh, I'm already pre-approved with somebody else, that's okay. That's the end of the story, right? Like, they're just kind of like, well, they're already pre-approved. They don't ask the question, like, how married are you to that person? Like, how did you find them?
Yeah. Have they already
Well,
gone
the
through?
problem too, again, now listen, I have my chosen lender that I want everyone to work with. There are a couple that I know are really good. They're just, they're in town and they do a great job. And if they're married to them and I know, listen, I've worked with them, and if it weren't for my relationship with my chosen lender, I would, work with them too. Then that's a different story. Than I think our loyalty is to, of course, you, but ultimately to the client. So to me, when I know it's going to be a what show, it's a massive disservice not to say it. And again, I tell them, so part of the consult is, listen, Lacey, I have a team of professionals that I work with and have worked with, and they do an amazing job for my clients. I work with them personally. I'm going to be recommending people. You get to ultimately make the decision. I just know for the process and closing to happen as we want, this is how it works really well. So if they again say, because sometimes frankly, oh, it's my cousin, I'm not going to, but I'm still calling cousin. I'm like, dude, cousin, here's how we do it here. Like, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. No, you can't give me the letter that you send at the beginning and call it an approval letter. I need no approval letter. Like, so to me, that's our job. But I think, look, as if I want a second opinion, yes, I will often say, listen, I want you to talk to my lender. I want to compare, right? Like, I need to make sure. I want you to talk to them. But I think not asking the questions is the problem. Not voicing when we know,
There'd be concerns. Yep.
Right. So, and I think, again, part of the process should be, before you meet, I want you to talk to my lender. And that I tend to avoid that a lot, except if it's someone that comes in who has this, they're already established with their lender and I'm new, makes it way harder, right?
Oh, yeah.
When it's me that starts and then I get to establish, it's way easier because I'm the first person, I'm the consultant that's referring versus the receiver.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and you said it earlier. I think that it makes sense to also bring up the fact that you need to assume that the conversations if you don't know what conversations that lender is having, you probably should assume the worst. Just
Well, I mean,
looking
it's
out for yourself is like they could be trying to talk them out of using an agent. They could be telling them that they could write up the paperwork for them. There are lenders that are going to get licensed to try to take business away from realtors.
yeah. And
Because they're
realtors are
sick
doing
of
it
getting
too.
business taken away from them, right? So
But
there's a
isn't
ton
that
of that
such
going
a,
on.
here's the funny thing, right? Like the realtors, so the big thing across the country in different areas is the realtors that are also becoming lenders and the lenders that want to be realtors. I'm like, guys, I'm going to say this in the lovingest way. Realtors don't know math. And so and we need to fill in 20 spots in a contract. And if realtors work with enough realtors, that's already hard for some realtors. They don't need to be doing the math. And vice versa. You guys
Totally.
stay in your lane of getting your part done, and I will take care of your clients. Like, I think if you're really great at what you do, doesn't mean you can't add services. It doesn't mean you might have a partnership or whatever. But to say the market's gotten tough, I'm going to do this other person's job when I'm not doing mine really well, to me is crazy.
I agree.
Amen. Amen, Marjorie. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been wonderful. I mean, we are out of time, but Marjorie, you're just always so real.
Yeah, I agree 100%. This was awesome. I think we should do it again because I've got more that I want to ask you, but man, we've got to cut it off. But I do want to get this in here because you do coach realtors and there's a lot of realtors that need coaching and you do it nationwide. So how would somebody get a hold of you, Marjorie?
So what I'm excited about is we're partnering and doing next level coaching for realtors. And so to get in touch with me, probably the easiest is you can go on Marjorie Adam Team Realtors, send me a message on Instagram or Facebook, Marjorie at Marjorie Adam, ADAM team.com. Just Google me, send me an email. We're going to be launching the social and everything else. We're really careful we're growing slowly. But I think right now, affordable coaching is what's really important. I've done super expensive coaching, and now it's like, listen, let's help people. Everyone needs help in a way that more people can do. And that's what I'm super passionate about.
Yeah. I love it. You guys can also reach out to us. I mean, Chad and myself, we can definitely get you in direct contact with Marjorie as well.
Yeah, 100%. We'd love to do it. Marjorie, you're amazing. Thank you so much.
Guys, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. This is always great. The more that we can get people excited and focusing on their specialties and partnering with, the lenders and realtors and just, seeing this as an opportunity and not a setback, I think is what I want to do.
I couldn't agree more. I think we are we are an industry together, and to be able to collaborate together and figure out how to keep moving forward and growing together through this is where it's at. So we appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Marjorie. All right. Well, until next time, guys, thanks for tuning in and share this. This was great. Share this with somebody that you like. If you didn't like it, then don't share it, I guess. But we appreciate you.
Share it with someone you don't like.
Yeah, share it with somebody you don't like if you didn't like it.
Yeah,
I'm sure you loved it, though, because Marjorie knocked it out of the park. So thanks, guys. We will see you next time.
Bye.
See ya.